Rieu had it all, a fortune so big it could rival rock stars, castles fit for royalty, and sold out arenas all over the world. But behind all the fancy costumes, flashing lights, and standing ovations, there was a story that no one saw coming. Andre built an empire worth $40 million from classical music alone, which is unheard of even for the biggest pop stars today. So why would this huge fortune one day be the reason his closest family cried? Andre didn't grow up rich. He was when Andre was young. He loved music. His dad was the conductor of the Rieu Symphony Orchestra, so music was always a part of his life. But he knew early on that he didn't want to sit quietly in a stuffy concert hall. He wanted something bigger, louder, and more exciting. He wanted crowds to clap, sing, and jump up from their seats, and he built it step by step. In 1987, Andre took a huge risk that would either make him a legend or ruin him forever. He started the Johann Strauss Orchestra, not a small group playing music together. It started with just 12 musicians, but quickly grew to over 60 performers from all over the world. Andre didn't just play classical waltzes, he put on shows with everything from Strauss classics to the Macarena, and it worked. Fans loved it, tickets flew off the shelves. Soon he wasn't just filling theaters, he was filling whole arenas and stadiums around the world. And by the early 2000s, money was coming in faster than anyone had thought possible. Not only was he successful, he was also selling more albums than big bands like AC/DC, Bruce Springsteen, and Coldplay. His shows made millions of dollars every night, and his DVDs flew off the shelves in every country. Fans came from thousands of miles away, paid a lot of money, and cheered like they were at rock concerts. Andre's empire was booming, and his wealth grew dramatically, making him the richest violinist alive. But he didn't hide his money in the bank. Instead, he spent it on making even bigger shows. He risked almost everything he owned by designing a stunning $30 million stage for his concert at the Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna. It looked like a fairy tale covered in gold crystal and fancy details, and it was exactly what his fans had hoped to see from him. But that fairy tale almost cost him everything. The huge cost put him on the verge of bankruptcy, wiping out decades of earnings in an instant. Andre had taken risks before, but this one almost broke him completely, but he refused to quit. Slowly, concert after concert, he got back on his feet. He paid off his debts and made his shows even bigger hits, and within a few years, he was richer than ever. To get even richer, he turned his concerts into global cinema events, streaming performances in theaters around the world. This brought millions of new fans who couldn't fly to see him live to the movies, where they paid a lot to experience the excitement on the big screen. Andre's wealth didn't just recover, it doubled, then tripled, reaching an amazing $40 million by 2023. But he didn't just get rich. His family was there from the beginning, especially his wife Marjorie, who was more than just his partner. Marjorie designed the costumes, helped pick venues, and planned the stunning stage sets that became famous around the world. Together, they made every show unforgettable, building an entertainment empire that turned into a real family business. Their son Pierre even played a big part by becoming vice president of Andre Rieu Productions, which turned the company into something like a musical dynasty. Andre's shows became legendary. But he never forgot where he came from. He lived in Maastricht in a castle that was built in 1452. Yes, a real castle. This wasn't just any old mansion. It was the legendary place where D'Artagnan of the Three Musketeers ate his last meal before dying in battle. Andre had dreamed about owning it since he was a child, and now he did. He spent millions of dollars renovating every inch of it, turning it into a dream palace full of priceless art, sparkling chandeliers, and gardens that belonged in fairy tales. It was like a movie, but Andre was living it every day. Even though he was very rich, Andre didn't slow down. He kept adding more concerts and touring nonstop from Europe and the US to Australia and Japan. Every year, his tours got bigger, his audience got bigger, and his wealth grew. He wasn't just a musician anymore. He was a superstar, a global phenomenon whose brand turned into an unstoppable money-making machine. But despite all the glitz and glamour, Andre kept one surprising habit: baking during the lockdown in 2020, when concerts were canceled and millions of dollars in ticket sales went away. Overnight, Andre did something unexpected. He started baking cakes and giving them to his neighbors. It wasn't fancy or showy, it was just simple kindness. It was a gentle reminder that behind the huge empire was a man who still valued community and simple pleasures. But there was more to Andre's fortune than that. His empire depended on him working nonstop, and when he got sick with a severe ear infection in 2010, everything almost fell apart again. Doctors were surprised that he hadn't gotten sick sooner given how busy he was. His family realized for the first time how fragile their fortune really was. Everything they had worked so hard for depended on Andre's health. One illness or canceled tour, could cost them millions of dollars right away. The pressure was huge, but Andre got better and kept going, determined to keep the music and the money coming in. But behind the scenes, while fans saw happy Andre performing effortlessly, his family was struggling to run an empire worth tens of millions of dollars, taking risks that no one knew about. Each spectacular show was a risk that cost millions of dollars in set designs, venues, musicians, and marketing. If it didn't go well, it could ruin everything Andre built. Then there was another secret. Andre's wealth wasn't just from concerts. He had been quietly investing millions of dollars in luxury properties all over Europe. Fans knew about his Rieu Castle, but few realized how big his property empire had become. Rieu Castle wasn't just a random mansion, it had a very important history. It was built in 1452. It used to belong to Charles de Batz-Castelmore d'Artagnan, who was the real-life inspiration for the famous musketeer from the Three Musketeers. But when Andre first saw this place, it wasn't exactly fancy. He went there for piano lessons when he was 6 years old, and trust me, it wasn't love at first sight. The place was dark, falling apart, and kind of creepy, definitely not where you picture living your best life. But decades later, that spooky old castle became the center of Andre's empire, going from transformed a dark ruin into an amazing fairy tale-like estate. Inside his Rieu Castle, Andre surrounded himself with the kind of luxuries we usually only see on Netflix. For example, he bought a Stradivarius violin in 2018 for a whopping £7 million. It was his third Stradivarius violin. The first one he owned from 1667 was one of Stradivari's earliest pieces, but it was hard to play. Even so, Andre learned how to play it. He turned sound into gold by recording some of his best albums on it. Andre didn't just love music, he was playing in a league of his own. Andre's lavish lifestyle didn't end with instruments. He was in charge of every aspect of his concerts, even the clothes his orchestra wore. He personally designed each of the beautiful gowns his female musicians wore, drawing inspiration from historical figures like Empress Elizabeth of Austria. These dresses were no joke, they cost around $3,000 each. Dozens of musicians every tour. It's easy to see why Andre once went bankrupt over his stage designs. Remember that crazy stage set he made for his concerts in Vienna in 2008? It was an exact copy of Schönbrunn Palace, complete with fountains, real ice rinks, gold carriages, and dancers in fancy ballrooms. It sounds epic, right? Well, it cost a whopping £34 million to build, and he didn't just make one set, he made 3 sets for touring. That was flashy and brilliant, but it almost killed him. He ended up sitting down with his bank manager to talk about what they could take away to pay off his huge debts, but he managed to get through it and came back even stronger. This guy was unstoppable. Or was he at home? Everything looked peaceful, comfortable, and even normal, at least as normal as life in a real castle could be. Andre had been married to Marjorie since 1975, and the two of them had 2 children. Had 2 sons, Marc and Pierre. There were proud family photos on the castle walls, reminding people of the simpler times when Andre was just starting out. But now, even his family played important roles in his empire. For example, Marjorie wrote the scripts for his concerts, putting words to the music that touched millions of people around the world. And Pierre, their younger son, stepped up big time and became vice president of Andre Rieu Productions. Family dinners may have looked like casual get-togethers, but they were actually board meetings. But despite the fancy lifestyle and tasty desserts, Andre's childhood wasn't exactly happy. Growing up in a small, crowded house in MRI with 5 siblings wasn't easy. His dad was an orchestra conductor but didn't show him much affection, and his mom was even worse. Andre thought they were jealous of his natural talent because he could play the violin beautifully within weeks of starting to play at age 5. Music helped him escape the bad times, but the scars kept pushing him to do more. That drive to prove himself was clear when Andre started out in 1978, when he put together his first group of 12 musicians to play at weddings and small restaurants. Money was tight, so people barely noticed them. Sometimes they weren't even looking up from their food. Andre almost quit music altogether. He joked about opening a pizza restaurant instead. Imagine Andre playing Paganini at a wedding with a violin in his hand. But luckily for his millions of fans around the world, he stuck with it. Andre changed his group in 1987 and made the now famous Jan Strauss Orchestra. He looked up to Johann Strauss, the original waltz king, who showed that musicians could also be business geniuses. Strauss had 5 orchestras going at the same time, but Andre settled for one huge orchestra, which is now the world's largest privately owned orchestra. They played in stadiums packed with people in Europe, sold out arenas in America and Asia, and Andre's fame took off during a memorable soccer match between Ajax and Bayern Munich in 1995. Andre smartly bought 1 minute of live TV coverage during halftime to show off his music. Ajax scored just before halftime, which was perfect timing, and millions of people watched Andrei perform Shostakovich's Waltz Nu live on TV. The next week, he sold over 200,000 CDs, making him a worldwide superstar. One well-timed soccer goal changed everything for him, and with success came even bigger dreams. Andrei spent millions of dollars making his shows the most spectacular events possible, complete with fake snow. Every show had balloon drops, fancy ball gowns, and he famously insisted on serving real champagne during performances, even though he didn't drink it himself to keep things real. Fans loved the show, critics laughed, but Andrei didn't care. He wanted authenticity, no shortcuts, no pretending. Despite all this luxury, Andrei kept things real. He collected Tintin comics, taught himself Spanish during lockdown by reading crime novels, and still loved a simple toy truck from his childhood. This truck wasn't just a toy, it reminded him of the good old days when he and his brother Robert made cars out of scrap wood and old wheels. But Andrei wasn't some millionaire collector living in the past. He had his eyes on the future. His orchestra was bigger than ever, with 60 musicians and a huge staff of support staff. He wasn't happy with being the world's biggest classical star or selling 40 million records. Andrei wanted to do something that no other musician had ever done. He wanted to play a concert on the moon. Yes, you heard that right. He wanted to play a concert on the moon. He wasn't joking. He even had a serious conversation with billionaire Richard Branson about building a hotel on the moon's surface. Branson, who is known for his crazy plans, promised to get it done, and Andrei was going to bring his huge Jan Strauss orchestra up there to play the world's first space concert. It sounded crazy until you remembered that this was the guy who had written 1 million albums. Andrei Rieu made classical music more popular than Beyoncé and Metallica. If anyone could make a concert on the moon happen, it was Andrei Rieu. But how did Andrei get to this level of crazy success and ambition? Well, unlike most classical groups that get their money from schools or wealthy donors, Andrei built his orchestra from scratch in the late 1980s. He had almost nothing but a crazy dream and a few musicians who trusted him. From the start, he took huge risks by not having any sponsors or government help, and he spent all the money from albums and tickets. He put at least $1 million a month into running this huge business, and that doesn't even include the cost of touring. Every show had to be sold out, and every album had to be #1 on the charts, or else the whole thing would fall apart overnight. He had about 110 full-time employees, like musicians, lighting technicians, and cooks, plus another 100 freelancers who helped with logistics, travel, and marketing around the world. It wasn't just a business, it was his second family. Together, they set up and took down huge stage sets in arenas from Mexico City to Sydney. Each city needed 9 huge trucks full of lights, costumes, instruments, props, and other gear. His crew worked non-stop, often starting from scratch at 7 a.m. and tearing it down right after the 3-hour show ended around midnight. To the audience, it seemed like magic, but behind the scenes, it was hard, disciplined work, and there were no rock star antics allowed. Andrei didn't like wild parties, so his team traveled with their own chefs to make sure they ate well, and he slept before every concert to stay fresh. He knew that one bad show on a tired night could ruin his reputation and cost him millions of dollars. After every concert, Andrei insisted on celebrating with his musicians, but not with wild champagne parties, just good wine and casual chats. This wasn't just work for him, it was his life's passion. His hard work paid off big time, and his album sales were amazing, even in an age of streaming and digital music. Universal Music, his record label, had been working with him for over 20 years, and the results were amazing. In those 20 years, Andrei sold more than 40 million albums around the world, which is a number usually only seen by pop stars and not violinists. Also, even though many people said DVDs were dead, Andrei's fans still bought millions of them every year, especially those filmed during his famous Maastricht summer concerts. He carefully edited these performances every year, and fans rushed to buy them, proving Andrei's belief that his music was still relevant. People always wanted something real they could hold in their hands. Andrei wasn't just a great musician, he was also a master showman who knew exactly what his fans wanted. He regularly put out themed albums like his famous movie themes collection, which included huge hits like My Heart Will Go On. Andrei himself admitted that he rarely wrote original music, preferring to take songs that people loved and arrange them in his own unique way. This formula worked every time, and each album became a bestseller, fueling his empire. Keeping up this level of success wasn't easy. Andrei was always under a lot of pressure to keep selling records and filling seats without any donors or sponsors. Every choice he made came with huge risks, and he couldn't afford to slow down, not even during a global pandemic. When concerts stopped, Andrei switched gears and baked cakes for his neighbors and community to stay connected and keep his spirits up. He used the downtime to plan even bigger projects like his The Dream Continues, an ambitious movie screening honoring his 75th birthday in 2025, showed never-before-seen performances from Andre's global tours and played in theaters all over the world. It was a grand celebration of his life's amazing journey from a kid dreaming in Mick to a global icon adored by millions. Andre never hid the secret behind his incredible rise: hard work, discipline, and taking risks that no one else would dare. His Jewish father-in-law, Edgar Kman, had influenced him deeply through his collection of 300 vinyl records. These records shaped Andre's style and made his concerts accessible to millions of people who never thought they'd love classical music. Songs like Hava Nagila, a Jewish klezmer tune, became huge hits at Andre's concerts. His performance of this classic on YouTube alone has over 14 million views. He played everywhere, even in Israel, where he got standing ovations for songs like Jerusalem of Gold. Despite all of his success, Andre never forgot where he came from. On his 75th birthday, he celebrated in style by having a big boat party in his hometown of Maastricht with his whole orchestra on board. Fans all over the world joined in by watching movies with performances from decades of Andre's unforgettable shows. Andre built a huge private orchestra that became famous all over the world and a fortune that made his family both proud and nervous.